Everyone hear me okay? Great. And can everyone see me okay if I'm down here? Is this good? All right. I guess everyone, the yays have it. So I want to thank you all for inviting me to spend the evening with you all. This is, it's a lot of fun for me to do these things. And as Grant, one thing, if you've ever had your bio read in front of you, it's probably one of the most horrible things in the world. And as I'm listening to my bio being read, it just reminds me of why I do what I do, because I had a lot of things to undo in my life in order to be able to be effective at what I was told I had to do. What I mean by that is, Naval Academy graduate, Marine Corps officer, FBI agent. I've worked counterintelligence my entire career. I've been 19 years, and for my caveat for my government stuff, I do have outside employment authority. I am on my free time right now. I have 2 years till retirement. I may mention that a few times throughout this, that in 2018, I am out, and I'm having it's been amazing because, you know, you look at that hard charger type A personality that generally has that career track, and my personality, anyone ever take the Myers-Briggs type indicator? Oh, great. Where are my ENTJs? All right. Oh, well, I even heard that. Oh. Yeah, I'm a recovering ENTJ. Hi, I'm Robin. Nice to meet you. Extroverted, intuitive thinking judger. They have fantastic strengths. They call them life's natural leader, the executive, the administrator. 20 years old. I won't dub any of y'all other brethren ENTJs like this. I called it narcissistic megalomaniac ass. I wanted to conquer the world. My personality said I was supposed to conquer the world. I didn't understand why you weren't following behind me and doing that. And the Marine Corps did a fantastic job of starting to beat that out of me. I got ranked last out of 15 lieutenants at Cherry Point, North Carolina in my primary MOS, and I didn't understand why. I asked my major, I said, you know, okay, please help me understand. I want to be better. And he goes, well, you just need to be a better leader. I'm like, okay. Next. I mean, it's very subjective at a very young age. People don't understand how to articulate what leadership is and the actual actions you're supposed to take when you're not born that way. And so I got better at it because I had some great mentors and guides along the way in the Marine Corps. My last duty station was Parris Island, South Carolina, and I was a series commander for 5 cycles, and then went to depot headquarters, and I helped co-write the Crucible that all Marines go through now. And I had fantastic leaders, mentors, and guides that were teaching me the art form. And then I come in the Bureau in 1997. I get assigned to New York field office, and I assigned to work counterintelligence. My squad in New York. When you work counterintelligence, again, I'm not doing a victory lap. I got to do some framing to understand how this process I'm going to share with you all tonight came about. And it's something I live every single day of my life is what I'm going to share with you. And that's I'll close up with 2 pretty funny and semi-miraculous stories that literally happened within the last 2 days. I use a lot of kid examples. So they're both kids? No, one was from a strange email I got from a runners group in the West Coast, and the other was my son, issues with turning Christmas gifts back in because his girlfriend broke up with him. Because what we're going to do is we're going to talk about phraseology, because that's what it really comes down to, and that's what, you know, the difference between trying to force someone to do something or convince them to do something and rather inspire them to want to. And it all comes down to your ability to utilize this wonderful tool right here and do the most hardest thing that we are hardwired against as human beings: suspend our ego and our vanity. And when you have that type A personality that it's all about this guy, that's why the first book was called It's Not All About Me. It's a guide how not to be me. And so I come in the Bureau and I have these fantastic mentors and guides in my squad. Again, all former military, because we worked the Russian military intelligence was all I did. And what I learned about working in counterintelligence, and I still do now, down in Fredericksburg, Virginia, right down the road, I have 400 beautiful clear defense contractors I help protect against foreign adversaries trying to steal the proprietary trade secrets, is that there are no human beings doing what I do that are generally criminals. They're trying to get things that might be proprietary, but trying to prove a fair act or anything else. This is very difficult. And so, as a matter of fact, I'm teaching at Quantico tomorrow, and I have a group of counterintelligence agents there, and I'm going to do exactly this. I'm going to say, how many of you actually have subject to your investigations that are committing crimes? I might have 1 hand out of 30 go up. Because this is counterintelligence, this is espionage, this is double agent operations, recruitment operations, interviewing. And I say, all right, out of all you out there, how many actually have confidential human sources, human beings that you have a relationship with that give you information that actually conduct otherwise illegal activity on your behalf, just like all the criminal guys, whether they're buying drugs, joining gangs, getting all these networking things? No hands go up. So why should any of these human beings ever want to have a dialogue or a relationship with you? What's in it for them? And if you can't answer that question to begin with, don't waste your words. So before I engage any human being, I always ask myself, why should this human being want to have a relationship with me? So that's where I'll start off. I had, as I said, great mentors and guides in New York. I got asked to be on our behavioral analysis program, which is different than the criminal sides on the BAUs and the profilers. Ours kind of flip-flopped. I generally deal with the normal social psychology, and I always know who I'm going to be engaging. And I got on our team in 2002. I went from New York to Norfolk, did the same thing down there, went from headquarters, then up to headquarters. I ran a program up at headquarters for a while, and then the light bulb started going off. I got decent at this on the street. It's only because I had good mentors and guides. Again, I'm overwriting, I'm cascading on top of the skills I had as an ENTJ. I needed to bring a lot more feeling and perceiver into there. And so I finally had the art form down pretty good. So they asked me to come down to Quantico and teach human source development, teach interviewing, teach developing trust, because that's what I did on my behavioral team too. And so I get down there for the first time ever, and someone says to me, okay, welcome to adult facilitation and education. Make that art form a paint by number. Make it linear. And I said, okay, watch. Come with me and do what I do. And I said, no. Action words, Bloom's taxonomy of learning. And so you had to take the anecdotal and make it linear. And so the first time I made this art form that I was witnessing these great mentors and guides of mine, I call them Jedi Masters, I'm sorry, I love Star Wars, all of a sudden I started seeing it everywhere. I call it my Toyota Green Tundra effect. Matter of fact, you might even see my Toyota Green Tundra, it's out there. Anyone ever have that where you buy your new car and all of a sudden the day you buy your new car, it's like, poof, I start seeing a new car. Labels and meanings. That's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to give labels and meanings to things you're already seeing and witnessing in your life already, and you're going to be able to recognize them very proactively and make conscious choices about how to engage and not engage using your words based on these labels and meanings. Because you don't even have to try to see that new car anymore. You just see it again for the rest of your life. Same thing with setting goals. And I'll get to that. Once you set that goal and objective as a project manager, as a leader, as a father, as a coworker, whatever it is, you don't have to try. Because if you start trying to force that agenda, it becomes manipulation. Because a lot of times people aren't going to leave a room until I get accomplished what I want accomplished. As opposed to setting a goal, talking in terms of the other person's priorities, understanding their context, using phraseology terms and things that are seeking thoughts and opinions, empowering them with choice, using a sympathy theme maybe, and then inspiring them to want to align their priorities with yours. I'm going to make that very linear. And it is very, very simple. The hardest thing for execution in this is this dang ego in here. And I love when I have opportunities to do this, basically emotionally hijacking. For me, when I get emotionally hijacked, this former Marine, he wants to take out a baseball bat and fix a problem. But I recognize it, and immediately go into what I call science experiment mode, because it becomes a beautiful science experiment. And I can guarantee you this. I can't guarantee results of what it is you're trying to achieve. Although I can honestly tell you the track record is really stinking high right now. I can guarantee you if I don't do this, and use these words in this manner, the other person's shields are going to be up and no information is going to be going in whatsoever. Has anyone ever been successful at arguing why someone should do something if you're arguing? If you're disagreeing with their context of what they see from their perception. But we do it all the stinking time. I don't. It's a waste. It's wasted words. So when that situation in life blips out of the norm and you have to, I call it game on, you have to really cognate what you're doing. It's from that point on, I say, everything out of my mouth has to be in terms of them, their priorities, what's important to them, and talks in terms of their context, using language that they understand and like. Because if I want information in, shields out. In other words, if you were to do something that I didn't agree with, you'd say something, do something, like I don't agree with this format you have. And hey, also, it's great being the first guy up with a new format. It's all my fault. Not Grant's. So if you say something about this new format, our natural reaction is, I really didn't really care for that. All of a sudden, shields up, you get very defensive. As opposed to, wow, I never really thought of it quite in that way. Help me understand, how did you come up with that? So now your shields are down, you're sharing, because I'm asking thoughts and opinions, and dopamine start going in your brain. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, brain rewards are firing. Because your brain is saying, this is good for my survival because I'm part of an affiliation in a collective. Meaningful groups and organizations, our brains are hardwired to want to belong to them. Who's ever traveled overseas for pleasure? What happens when you bump into another American? Where are you from? Oh, do you know the Smiths? We're trying to constantly affiliate. We're genetically hardwired for these things. And so when I'm not contrary to you, and I'm seeking your thoughts and opinions, our brain are rewarding us for that. Now, if I want you to see my context of something, I then say, ooh, I never thought about it. Thanks for sharing. I was wondering, what do you think about this? Now I'm telling you all the things that I thought I wanted to do, yet I'm seeking your thoughts and opinions about it again. Every time I seek a thought and opinion, your brain is rewarding it on dopamine. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, chocolate, and seeking thoughts and validations. That's it. The brain is doing all the same things. So having this core understanding of human beings, I can very well predict what you're going to do if I don't do these things. Your shields are going to be up, and no information is going to be going in, and we will not align our priorities most likely. Unless, for some reason, and does this happen where you can argue this way and do it? Yeah. If by chance you happen to stumble across a mutually beneficial priority, that's when it does work. Having this type A personality has had fantastic triumphs and fantastic troughs as well. This methodology I've adapted it keeps skyrocketing with just successful communication, and I use it absolutely everywhere. My boss will say to me, Robin, you doing it to me now? I said, what, making it all about you? Darn right I am. You want me to stop? I'll be an ass. Whatever you want. Because it's a very, very simple truth, and it's very, very easy to do. Because again, as long as you're setting your goals and priorities at the beginning, you're going to naturally align them. You don't have to try. Just like you don't have to try to see that new truck that I just bought, you're going to naturally align it. During the course of a conversation, if you have something you want to say and talk about, and the other person starts talking, do you not naturally cherry pick the topics you might think will lead you to be able to talk about the things you want to talk about? We do it. Same thing with this entire process. That's why I'm saying there's nothing new here. I'm going to give lots of labels and meanings to things that make it much more fluid and easy. So the 5 steps I'm going to go through, I came up with about 3 years ago, and someone asked me to write an article about what my team does. And so that made that process linear. I just thought it was some magical thing when I did a behavioral assessment for a client in the country. So that made it linear. Before that, I had 10 steps to report that I did about 3 years before that, which the first book is based on. So when you practice this stuff every day, that muscle memory starts building and building and building. You get deeper and deeper and deeper. And this is my latest new truth that I came up with literally 3 days ago. And it was based off these new scenarios that I was placed with in my regular life where it really just came down to we're not trying to convince someone to do something, rather we're trying to inspire them to want to do it. And that for me was like another light bulb. It was stuff I was already doing, but just having that very simple understanding. Stop trying to convince. Is it always not easier if someone discovers on their own what they want to do? Yourself, do you feel better and do you enjoy it more if you decide what it is you want to do or you're told what to do and how to do it? So if you work for someone, you engage with someone, you're leading a team or a project with someone, having them discover on their own what the solution is a lot easier than trying to poke them in the eye and force them to do that. Also, there is no right or wrong with any of this. There just is. There's cause and effect. I always think out the cascading effect of every individual I interact with. And these goals, my goals are very, very simple. Happy, healthy, honest communications with everyone in my life. I do it with my coworkers. I do it with every stranger I meet on the street. I'll do it with Grant. I do it with absolutely everyone. Because everything cascades down from there. From there, I might want a new job position. I might want this project to be successful. Those are the kind of means goals along the way to the ends goals of happy, healthy relationships with everyone in my life. And I add a few extra with my teenagers. Open, honest communications, and help them with healthy relationships in their lives. Those are the 2 I had to add, because all of a sudden they go down the road of crazy because prefrontal lobe's not fully deformed yet, so they're really given to emotional impulse. Can you imagine how I drive my teenagers nuts? But here's when it's working. When my 16-year-old son hands me his cell phone and says, Dad, I don't know what to say back to her. She's driving me nuts about his girlfriend. And here's creepy dad sitting there texting the 16-year-old girl saying, Kevin, look good? Mom, look good? Hit send. 30 minutes later, poof, problem solved. Because of a lack of ability to communicate, because all they're doing is arguing context. You're doing this to me. You're doing this. Your behavior's this. I looked at it and said, Kevin, your communication is absolutely horrible. Own it. I am so sorry I created such stress and anxiety in your life. It's completely my fault. Let me know what it is, how you want me to fix it. Gone. So our time together, here's our Bloom's Taxonomy of Learning. Introduction to personality assessment. That's what we're kind of talking about now. How do you assess individuals? And basically it's really easy. Don't do stuff that makes them angry. It just, that keeps their shields up. Think in terms of every human being's looking to share their thoughts and opinions. They're not to be looked down upon. They're looking to be an equal participant. Yes, someone's in charge. In the Marine Corps, you got two Marines together. One's in charge, one's leading, and one's following. Yes, of course. You don't have to keep poking at someone's eye because all you're doing is getting shields up every time you do it. If you want information and you want people on your team, make them feel part of that team. Again, how did I get this? Because, one, I got teenagers. Two, I've worked on the street for 19 years, recruiting lots and lots of everyone's from all over the world, every nationality, everything, whether they're actually intelligence officers or whether they're people helping me get to intelligence officers. And not one time have I ever arrested. I haven't arrested anyone in 19 years. They laugh at me in the office down there. This is the other thing too. Ownership, self-awareness, and suspend that vanity. I'll tell you, I am one of the worst case agents you can ever see. Do not put me behind a computer to solve an investigation. I'm not the best. I will point out a lot of other people. If you need to go talk to someone, I can talk okay. And that's what I do. And I'll be the first. I own what I am. No big deal, because when you own who you are, does it not engender trust? I'm not trying to hide a thing. You ask me a question. That's why, Grant asked me, how do you have outside employment to do this? I talk a lot to my executive management. I do the best I can to make them look good. Our ethics and compliance folks, Mr. Kelly's office up at FBI headquarters, I do everything I can to comply with everything I have. I preempt everything. I said, here's what I'm thinking about doing. What do I need to do to make your job easier? Not say, hey, I should be able to do this. Who cares? They don't care. All right, rapport building, trust, influence, learn how to practice and build muscle memory. Okay, I'll give you a couple simple exercises, if I can, about how to do this at the very end, because it really comes down to muscle memory. I teach this exact core, kind of expanded a little bit more, to everyone from new agents just coming out, to my high schoolers, to me doing it every single day of my life. It's just your ability to really see the clarity of words and how to use them. It's phenomenal. And and this is really the key of this whole thing. It's about making about everyone else but you. It takes, I call it a leap of knowing. I don't even call it faith anymore, because I know what the result's going to be when I exercise it and make it all about everyone else but me. And that is ultimately what leadership is. The second, you raise your hand in any kind of format, whether you're leading a project team as a project manager, you're a leader, or whether it's your home, work, anything else, from that moment on, you decide it's about everyone else but me. And that's what the hardest part is to own as well, because a lot of times when I first came in the bureau, I thought the way to get ahead was have great cases, make myself look really good, and I'll have a great career. That's not wrong. You're going to have those peaks and valleys. But if I make myself the person that is indispensable to everyone else because I'm making everyone around me look good. I mean, we have lots of terms for that in the bureau. You become part of that tribe that you're kind of carried along with everyone else as they're rising up. Why? Because you're making them all look good. Because it really comes down to how do that's the other thing. How do you want to be remembered? At 2 points in your life, your retirement and your eulogy. I don't care about anything except I want to be remembered as a guy that did everything he could for everyone when he had the opportunity to do it. That's it. No one cares about anything else. Just ask my kids. They don't care. Build trust and leadership strategies for all situations. So that's what we're going to work on. An overlay to the project management code. So here's the fundamental questions I ask myself before any significant engagement. I say significant because, every day in my life, do I do this every day with my wife and kids? No, only when I say something stupid coming out of my mouth. I'm probably about 95% effective outside the home. I'm up to maybe 60% inside the home, because that's when our shields are really down and we're really at the core of who we are. Because this takes effort sometimes. And some of you are hopefully having some light bulbs go off, but for multiple reasons. I guarantee there's at least half of you in here that are doing all these things naturally. Hopefully this is helping you understand what you're doing so great. So you can take that skill set, instead of saying, like my Jedi Master said to me, hey, come with me and watch what I'm doing. You're going to be able to say, come with me and watch what I'm doing, and I'm doing this, and this. Pass on that knowledge a lot quicker. And for those of you all that were born deficient, probably not nearly as many as me, is this is what I was missing. I asked myself, why should anyone want to talk to me? If I'm told to do something, if I'm told to go interview someone or interact with someone, the first question I ask myself is, so why should they want to? Not why I think they should want to. Why would they think they'd want to? So that's what I first start working on. Same thing. Why should they tell me anything? Why should they even want to see me again? Why should they want to take actions for you? Why should anyone follow you? These are very simple questions to me. And yet we never ask those very simple things. And if I can't answer that question, my first opening strategy for engaging is to find out why you should, and I'll own it. I said, for the life of me, I have no idea why in a million years you'd even want to have a conversation with me. I have all these resources here that I think can be beneficial, but I'm kind of guessing and stabbing at the moon. Is any of this of help to you? Because if it's not, let me know and I'll stop bothering you. As opposed to, hey, here's what you need to try to do this. That is generally my opening. If I have nothing to work with, I'm working with that because I'm seeking your thoughts and opinions. I'm empowering you with choice. Your shields are down, and I'm giving you options. And the option is that you can just tell me to go away. Honesty is also one thing that it's so funny. I work counterintelligence, all the sneaky, spooky subterfuge. Oh my God, I never lie anymore. You know when someone's looking creepy, and they walk away and say, what's he really want and think? Incongruence between this and this. You get that incongruence, you're the creepy bad car salesman or a guy that works counterintelligence in New York. So if you're trying to engender trust and a cooperation, I'm as open and honest as I possibly can be. And if I can't tell you something, I'll tell you why I can't tell you. Because I get polygraphed next week and I'd fail. I can't tell you, sorry. Although I passed my last polygraph too. That's another thing that's all done. Influence, basically leadership versus manipulation. Any ideas? What's the difference? What's manipulation? Control. That's a good one. Kind of forcing that agenda like we said. Now what's the difference between influence? There you go. Inspiring them to want to do it. I love that word inspiring. I was really word wrestling with a guy I coach and mentor last night. Because even there, make them want to do it. And that's phraseology. The same goal and objective is just stated in a different way. When I first started doing this stuff, someone said to me, "Hey, so what's this guy's vulnerabilities?" And so let's see. He's got 2 college-age kids. He's got elder parents. That elder issue is going to be a concern. Money for that. He's trying to do this, and he's behind on his mortgage. I said, "Oh, so who'd you just describe?" Probably about 3/4 of you in this room. There's no vulnerabilities. There's priorities. Because if I start looking at a human being as having vulnerabilities, did I just objectify that human being? Did I just place myself mentally in a position of superiority over them? They're going to pick up on it. Guaranteed. Even if it's this much. I call it pebbles in a bucket. There is nothing but purely humanistic understanding this beautiful human being and how you arrived at this place in time in front of me right now. And I'm curious, how did that happen? When I start trying to seek and understand that, affiliation. I have never interacted with any human being I did not find some sort of affiliation with. Mine, as you can't see already, I do a lot of kid stuff. They've been a hoot. So basically to me, same what you all are saying. So leadership and influence is about allowing the process to happen at the pace and tempo of the other person. Now granted, if you are on a timeline with a project and you need a different pace and tempo, no problem. You articulate these things in as to why, and if you have time built and established that normally it goes according to this nice soft skill plan, and the times when you have to poke someone in the eye, there's a reaction, rather than poking them every day where people just become numb to it. So to me, it's managing your expectations. It's allowing the process to happen. Same exact tools. I've had salty old cops and everyone else say, Robin, these things work fantastic. Use them all the time. But it's really just manipulation. I said, yeah, if you're trying to force that agenda, you're right. That's manipulation. If you're allowing it to happen and you're making it all in terms of them and what's important to them, then it's influence and it's inspirational. Brain rewards. So I'm always asking myself, what can I say or do that's going to get their brain to reward them chemically for the engagement with me? If the words I'm about to say or in writing are not congruent with that, I do not say it. I do a lot of email. I love doing emails because emails you can really sit there and craft. Every single line I go through and I say, is this about them or is it about me and my wants? If it's about me and my wants and I cannot add something that's in terms of them in there, it's tossed. It's a total waste of words. So I discovered this plain and simple thing. I kind of alluded to it already. My first thing I try to do is help, and I added this the other day, I used to say help them discover what their goals are and their wants, dreams, and aspirations. Because a lot of I did that first because very rarely do people understand really what they're trying to do, whether it's overall arching or in a given situation. Because they get emotionally hijacked and they start arguing context. So as soon as I start hearing people arguing context, my first question, hey, well, what are you trying to achieve? And then I say, well, is what you're saying and doing helping or not helping what it is you're trying to achieve? In other words, I get the cognation going again. Most important. Get the prefrontal lobe flooded back out, and let's start thinking again. And I do not pay attention to how information is delivered to me. I do not allow someone else's insecurities to allow myself to be collateral damage of that, because we all got insecurities. And generally when there's an argument in the context, we're arguing our insecurities because we're fearful we're not going to be part of that affiliation and tribe. So I dismiss that, and I just keep going for the core content. And so after I understand these things, or I discover what they already know about what their goals are, easy, I'm going to help them achieve it. And if I understand what my goals and objectives are, I'm naturally going to be aligning. But even if not, because even if I can't align my goals and objectives with theirs, I'm still going to help them achieve it, and I'm going to make a choice. Is this relationship healthy and good for the project I'm working on, or a goal that I'm working on? If not, then I just say, hey, we're done, we're good. Obviously, I'm not in a position to be able to help facilitate you because it's not helping what I have to achieve too, no problem. And you move on. So discovering this need, I talked a little about that. So this was what I saw in middle school and high school. The Blue Angels were flying the A4 Skyhawk. A good friend of mine was a A4 Skyhawk pilot during Vietnam. He flew off the Kearsarge. I thought he was the coolest thing since sliced bread. I wanted to be an aerospace engineer and an astronaut, and I grew up watching Patton thinking, wow, leadership is kicking someone in the ass and poking them in the eye. I got this down. Let me in. Failed at everything. Wound up in the FBI and working humans. But really the goal was I wanted to be a great leader. I was trying to define what that meant, and I thought it was one path, and aerospace engineering really kicked my butt. And so what happened was I thought I was this really great guy. I get down to Paris Island, not Paris Island, my first Cherry Point, and then we're doing our first workup at Camp Lejeune where we're going to go get ready to do these things called combined arms exercises out in 29 Palms. Here I was thinking, see, context, I thought I was a great guy. Everyone thinks they're great. Everyone thinks they're a good worker. Everyone thinks they're a good father. Yet for some reason, we got a lot of people in our lives arguing that context with us. Own it. These people forced me to own it. So I get down there at Camp Lejeune, my first deployment, all of a sudden middle of the night, little shuffling, little chuckling. I'm on a cot. I got my sleeping bag over my head. It's cold. It's December. And all of a sudden, whoop, got duct tape going around me and my cot. Sleeping bag. Oh, isn't that interesting? Oh, now I'm lifted up. Nope, now we're going somewhere. Kind of bopping around. 20, 30 minutes later, they set me down. They go laughing and shuffling off. I was able to wiggle my arm out. I had my Leatherman in there with me. I cut myself out, popped my head out. I was in the middle of the Gulf 10 impact zone. We were dropping bombs the next day. It's a message. Incongruence between that which I thought I was projecting and that which the rest of the world sees. I love now those great humbling moments where you hear what people say about you behind your back. It's not hurtful. It's educational, because then I can make a choice. I don't argue it. I can't. If you think I'm a jerk, I cannot sit here and argue with you. I'm not a jerk. I'm just going to be a bigger jerk. You know, all I can do is own it and ask myself, what behaviors am I manifesting that looks that way, and what can I do about it? Should I do something about it? Because again, there's no right or wrong. There's just awareness. This is so my first example of this in my bureau life was at this place in New York City where my good friend John Saponara, who lives down by me now, he takes me out. My first interview I'm going to do with a potential source. He says, come with me. Watch, we're going to have some fun. We're going to get someone. And I go, oh, what are you going to do? And he goes, watch, it's going to be magical. We sat down at this place, and this guy comes in, and he was in touch with one of our subjects, and so we just wanted behavioral assessment information so we could try to make friends with everyone, right? And so this guy, John, said one opening line. Don't remember what it was. And this guy starts talking and talking and talking. Started talking about his divorce, child custody battles, his battle with money and trying to pay for and finish up his PhD. And this is the first time we met this guy. And John's throwing in like a word here, a word here. He kept kicking me under the table because the guy that's all about me wants to talking about this guy. And 3.5 hours later, I'm like, how the hell has this got anything to do with counterintelligence and what we're supposed to do? All of a sudden the guy asks, hey guys, I'm so sorry, I took all the time. What can I do to help you? That was easy, that guy just volunteered. Because why? What was he getting? What gift was he getting? Time. And the most critical, awesome gift you can give any human being is non-judgmental validation of them, their thoughts and opinions, and how they're rolling in life. It is... And you want to see the severity of it? Who's got teenagers? Start judging their actions and their friends and see how much they clam up on you and don't share anything with you. It's an honest truth. You want people to be connected with you? Don't judge. Doesn't mean you're agreeing with them. I'm just trying to not judge, so I'm trying to understand who you are. And I have worked some pretty heinous cases where we've had counterintelligence subjects that are espionage subjects that are also pedophiles. If that person is sitting across the table from me, thinks I'm judging him in his actions, he's going to reveal the 64 unsubbed children that we don't know about that haven't come forward, and he's the only one that can tell me. And if you can't do it, I tell them you got to get someone else. Because if you want to learn, you're going to have to not have someone judge. Got to understand. It's amazing. You have to have this helps the empathy factor hugely. I saw a lot of books on emotional intelligence over there. I love EQ. Because the way you can't change who you are. Like I can't change ENTJ, but I can add a lot to balance it out. So you can't tell someone, hey, stop being like that. I always said it's easier to say, hey, why don't you start doing this? And let's try this and see how that helps. It'll just modify. And so that's all this process is. Creates massive self-awareness. My in-laws in Florida. I had my 20-year reunion from the academy a number of years ago, and I got together with all my roommates, and it was great being so local to Annapolis. Thank God my son wants to go there because it's free. And I remember it was four total roommates, all their families and everything, and I did the whole thing after dinner. I snuck up to the waitress, and I paid for everyone's meal. Not cheap. But they said, Robin, what the hell are you doing? I said, I am thanking you for your tolerance of me for the last 25 years. It's taken full accountability. And said, you weren't as bad as you think. You were just kind of funny and quirky. And I said, yeah, I thought I was a jerk. So it does create that massive self-awareness. I already said this. Basically, you're getting their brain to engage positively for engaging with you. They did this great experiment in Harvard a couple years ago, and what they found is that 40% of every day we spend talking about our own priorities. And our priorities are needs, wants, dreams, aspirations, short-term, long-term, things that are important to us, our thoughts and ideas. 40% of every day we're doing it because our brain is rewarding us chemically. Ancient tribal man, tribes 10, 20, 30, way back when, is a first form of survival, is being part of a collective. Everyone had a function that could be part of the collective. First form of healthcare, welfare, social reform, everything. That was part of it. 10 guys go out on a hunt, one guy gets a kill, he comes back, what's he supposed to do? Share. Because if he didn't, if he got sick, lame, or injured, he'd be left to die. No genetics passed on. So that desire to be part of this collective is part of who we are, and our brain rewards us for affiliation. That's all we're doing when we're sharing anecdotes and stories. We're trying to identify affiliation and seeing if we're being judged for it. If we're not being judged, I'll tell you more. Oh, you still accept me for who I am? Let me even tell you more. Those conversations, they say you have to be gone in 5 or 10 minutes, yet they go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Lots of dopamine flowing. Start talking about yourself, it gets cut off, and you get the blank stare and walking away. It's like, what'd I say? Oh, you didn't say anything wrong. You just weren't talking about them anymore. You cut off the flow. So we established trust and rapport on multiple levels. Panpsychological, things that apply to all human beings. That's everything I just said so far. It applies to every single human being that falls within the normal parameters of human behavior, no malformations of brains or chemical imbalances. So you start edging up towards psychopathy, then it's just all about grandiosity. There's not a whole lot there, but this is normal human behavior. Add to that culture, demographic, and generation, because all we're trying to do is find ways to affiliate and have commonality. And then that information you find from the individual. So every time we're having an interaction with people, we're discovering all these things continuously. But the reason why we're doing it is because we're trying to establish a connectiveness to see what level of trust we can have. What I found when they asked me to write this article about my team, I sat there and said, all right, I did 80 to 80, 90 behavioral assessments a year. And each of these behavioral assessments, I said, what's the core element of what I was doing? And what I discovered was in every single case, I was just trying to establish trust. Whether it's for someone to tell me something, whether it's someone to be recruited, whether it's double agent operate, I don't care what it was, I was trying to establish trust because I needed someone to take an action. And they're only going to do it if they have trust. And so as soon as I gave it that overlay, that's when I started seeing it everywhere in my life. So you add all these things together, and then you can discover how that person prefers to develop trust and what they need to be non-judgmentally validated for and accepted for. Because I always wondered, looking back in New York, my squad mates might not have thought I was the best guy in the world, but all my sources loved me. It's like, why did they love me so much? Because I never judged. Meanwhile, I'll judge my coworkers. You're a slacker. You're tech weenie. So that's that influence of belonging. We crave it. This has become a massive focusing tool because after you set that initial goal for yourself and what you're trying to achieve, everything from that point on is completely flipped. And so if I need to understand how you prefer to be interacted with, I need to understand all these things about you. So I'm not even considering anything about mine anymore, because I don't have to. My goals and objectives are right here. I'll always naturally align them. And so as I'm trying to discover everything about you, your priorities, your context, your dreams, your aspirations, goals, priorities, all these things, it's massive focusing. And you start to understand the human being you're interacting with. And they see that. Oh, this was big for the ENTJ. ENTJ, if you weren't rolling like me, you must be wrong. This was massive tolerance. You started seeing and also things like the Myers-Briggs. It allows you to see the beauty and the skill within every human being. My wife tells me every day, we're all working on something. Acknowledge we're all working on something. Yours might be facing them or not facing them. Theirs might be facing you or not facing you. That's what tolerance comes from. None of us have it all together. So that's what, if you just recognize that from the get-go, that tolerance skyrockets, and then you can strategize, how am I going to communicate effectively in this situation and with this individual? So, yeah, I could go on with amazing anecdotes about ego suspension, but I'll kind of show you with the two examples at the end. It's those moments in life when you feel like, whether it's a road rage situation and you feel you're right. Do you think the other person thinks they're right? Yep. What happens when you get the smile and wave, I'm sorry? Goes away. That's right. I'm right. That's all I needed. I don't care if you hit me. I'm right. So here's the core simplicity I'm always thinking of. Brain rewards. Always brain rewards. They always say in the Bureau, what's the goal of every interview? To get a second interview. Well, what are you doing to get their brain to reward them for conversing with you? What are you doing with that project and team that is going to make them want to work with you and interact with you? And it can't be what you think. Well, it might be. If you're guessing right, I don't like guessing on this stuff, because if I'm guessing, man, that's why you have these peaks and valleys of success and not success, because you keep guessing at what the other people want. Find it out. I think affiliation. I'm always thinking affiliation. What can I use to affiliate? We had an issue at my daughter's high school a couple years ago, not major. She didn't get on National Honor Society because of lack of oversight of the parent. She filled out the application. We didn't want to be the helicopter parent like we always are. Matter of fact, my wife's nickname is Mary Poppins. So we didn't want to be the helicopter parent, so we had her do it on her own, but we didn't check it. She turns it in, blank spaces. Instead of poking at, my wife wanted to poke at the school for their procedures, and I said, they're right. She didn't fill this out right. So instead of, arguing with the principal, we went in and said, you got a 16-year-old daughter here too. Help me understand. My daughter's sitting right here. I'm completely embarrassed that I am the cause for her not having future opportunities for grants and scholarships and everything else. Any advice? And that's when he went into, well, it's not about the National Honor Society. And he said, I'll guarantee you, I'll write her the best recommendations I can. And because remember, the goal might have been a means goal, of getting National Honor Society, but I asked my wife, what's the end goal? Future opportunities with your daughter. So I always go that deeper. If you're looking for a material thing or a specific outcome, I always ask myself, why? Because it helps them understand that. And then in this situation, during this course of conversation, his mother-in-law had just passed away. I just lost my cousin, and he's a big college basketball fan, and my wife was a men's basketball manager at Hofstra University, where she went. Affiliation, shields down, sympathy, empower with choice. All these things just keep circling. There's nothing memorized with me. I kind of think about my opening line, because that's got to be well crafted, but it's like, they call it the fog of war. After the first round goes down range, all plans go to hell. Yep, so I don't plan anything after the first round. That's it. One good round, and then I'm going to use all these understandings about the human being I'm going to be interacting with to keep the shields down. Empowerment with choice is huge. Do this. No. Do this. No. Do this. What would you prefer to do? The X, Y, or Z? I'll take that. I once worked for a colonel. He was a fantastic colonel. He told me, he said, never tell me no, only tell me yes. Tell me what it'll cost me. And let me make the choice. I do that with my bosses nonstop. I never tell them no on anything. But now, when I'm giving them the choices, how do you think I'm presenting these choices? Things that might be aligning with my priorities? Yes. I have very simple goals at work, too. Healthy, honest communications, like I said. Leave me alone. That's a subset. And let me help people who want to be helped. So why should they leave me alone? I'm making them happy. I'm helping them get promoted. That's what they want. I'm going to do everything I can. But I empower them with choice nonstop. And use phraseology to support these goals. So step one in this process. So I've kind of told you about the anecdotal subjective part of this. This is that linear thing. It is so simple when I look at it, but it's that execution that becomes hard because, again, the ego and the vanity comes in place. Step one, what's my goal? What am I trying to achieve? That's the only egocentric part in this entire thing, because I'm setting the goal, but it's not egocentric. That's the leader part of this. Leaders are the ones that set the goals and objectives. And they're also the ones, if they're doing it, they're inspiring those others to want to align their priorities and goals with it. But right after that, part of step one is, I think, why should they want to? Not me convincing them they're supposed to, it's why should they want to? We had a case, a guy who was arrested for espionage. He's looking at 15 years. Part of his plea agreement, down to 10 years, was that he'd cooperate and talk. Case agent calls me and says, Robin, he's talking, but he's not saying anything of value. Can you help? I said, sure. I said, what do you want to know? And he goes, we want to know X, Y, and Z. I said, great, perfect. Why should he tell you? He said, because if he doesn't tell us, he's looking at 15 years. I said, how's that working for you? He says, it's not. I said, you haven't discovered why he thinks he should want to tell you. So what's important in his life? What are his priorities? What's his family situation? What he wants his kids to know or not know? What's going on with his parents? What about work, colleagues, reputation? What's important to him? What are his priorities? He goes, I don't know. He just agreed to do this. I said, you've objectified the human being again. You've made it an object. Got to have trust. No one's going to share anything with you if you're sitting there judging them across the table, thinking they should tell you things because you think they should. Oh, who cares? Step two, as we've already said, ascertain their priorities. Needs, wants, dreams, aspiration. What makes this person want to get up and live another day? If they don't want to get up and live another day, why? I find out within minutes, divorces, losses in families, because people generally share what's most important to them in priorities right now. That's where I go. Because you're sharing it, you want some sort of validation in it in some way. Your actions, your thoughts, your opinions, just to vent about it without being judged. I'm telling you, there's no greater gift. Matter of fact, in my house, I walk in the door, I said, start the clock now. Every 30 minutes, I need some validation. Let's bring it. Timer goes off. Let's hear it. Who's got something for me? Not kidding, that's what I did yesterday. It's pretty funny. Ascertain the individual's context, how they see the world through their optic, so that you don't argue that context, but you understand what theirs is first. So you can talk in terms of it, as well as adjust yours if you need to. Learn something along the way. You know, one thing about being in the Bureau, especially working a lot, I did 10 years in New York, I did a bunch of time down in Norfolk, headquarters all over the place. You got a lot of sides of the fence. And when you got to be the neutral third party to discover a lot of things about people and try to have them have a good trusting relationship, you get a lot of understanding of context. I could probably argue just about every single political context, ethnic context, demographic context that I've heard in my career, and it's really convincing because I understand the why. What are you going to do about it? Because you can't judge it if you're trying to develop these things. I won't even get into all the fun stuff with politics. It's great. Good show. Because mostly, what are they doing? Arguing context. How effective is that? Phraseologies for success. Here's how I craft everything. I make every statement about them. I speak in terms of their priorities. If I don't know what their priorities are, I find out what their priorities are in that first opening statement. I seek their thoughts and opinions. If I do not know what to say, or I have something I want that I think is in terms of just me, then, okay, this is really all about me. I want them to do this one action. How can I make it about them? Hey, what do you think about if we wanted to do it this way? See? Same objective. Recrafted. Made it about them. Because when I'm seeking a thought and opinion, it's all about them. Brain reward, brain reward. Everyone loves to be a mentor, teacher, and guide. Will not everyone correct you? Oh, here's a good one to practice. Try saying something intentionally wrong and allow someone to correct you. Or better yet, have someone say something wrong around you that you know from your heart is wrong and not correct them. Seek to understand why. You're going to have and they're going to look at you dumbfounded and they're going to just go. And then empower them with choices regarding those priorities. This is how I craft everything and spend your ego and vanity. Not complicated, is it? It's really not. And you can do it at a lot of different levels. And I'm telling you, muscle memory will get you really good at this. So finally, it's crafting the encounter. You think about who. Who does this person need me to be in order to develop that trust? The where. Where's the best place and venue to do this? The when. What time of day is best on to do this? And then the how. And the how is how am I going to craft the opening statement to make this a beautiful engagement where their brain from the very get-go starts rewarding them so even if they say no. I mean, is branding not important? Is reputation so important? It's the most important thing each of us has. Our personal brand, our company brand, how we're remembered, how we're noticed. I mean, anyone ever watched The Old Miracle on 34th Street? What endeared all the customers to Macy's? What did Santa Claus do? Send them the gimbals if they didn't have the right merchandise there. Who did he make it all about? Them. That's what this is all about. So it's the how. How are you going to craft that opening to make it all about them? So even if they walk away and the answer is no, I've gotten a lot of no's. Hey, you want to recruit, intelligence officers and spies from other countries? You're going to get a lot of no. But my goal is always to have them walk away and say, but dang, I like that guy. And if I ever have a critical life crisis and I want to do something a little off the cuff, I'm going to contact that guy. And then he's going to broadcast that, how he's treated to all his colleagues. My wife, when this whole thing with the school blows up, every time something blows up, she said, they'll never have this teacher. I want a battle. And I'm like, really? Who's this teacher seat within the teacher's lounge? Why was this teacher put in that position? What's the relationship to the principal? What's going to happen when you walk in that door? What's going to happen with everyone that's affiliated with you that now knows you? What's that going to be, that cascading impact you're going to have through being a jerk once and feeling really good for about 30 seconds? I just don't look at the individual. I always looking at cascading effects, the collateral damage of those rounds going down range. And I have not come across a situation where it was worth the cost since I've kind of realized about how not to be me. All right, 2 examples. And I know they're funny and goofy, but I've chosen one because they literally happened within the last 2 days, and also because they really highlight this, don't try to convince people. And these are everyday situations. That's why I really like them, because it kind of gives you a flip way to think about how to do it. So I get this situation, this guy, I'm probably the most public figure besides their director in the FBI as well. So I get people email me, strangers all over the place, all different kind of challenges. So this guy asks me, he emails me and says, all right, I run a runner's blog out here on the West Coast, and it's a runner's group. I think it's dumbrunner.com. If you look it up, the posting on here is actually on there. He just put it up today. And he said, I have a runner that has this challenge. When she's going for these runs, they're nice, beautiful runs. She doesn't have dogs. She doesn't like dogs. And inevitably, there's a couple runners on this run that don't keep their dogs on leashes. And they're constantly biting at my feet, tripping me up and everything else. And every time I'm doing it, the other runner says, oh, don't worry, they're very friendly. What can I say? And she said, I give the wan smile and say, okay, thanks, and keep going and ignore it. But it's eating at her. But I said, and so he said, Robin, you're the crafter of words, instead of looking at dog psychology and animal psychology, said, what would you do? And I said, well, first question I ask myself is, why should they want to have their dog stop jumping on me? Instead of trying to convince them they shouldn't have their dog jump on me, how can I inspire them to not want to have their dog jump on me? That is what I'm talking about with this flip. And then from that point, I asked myself, and when I get these things, I'm like, what the heck would I say? I got no idea. So I got to really think this process. And then from that point on, I said to myself, well, why don't I like dogs jumping on me? In other words, don't poke it at her. Her context is she's completely fine. You're an idiot if you give me a problem. So I got to take ownership. Even if you think they're this wrong, you got to find what you're doing wrong. Why don't you like dogs jumping on you? Think about it. I asked that question. I said, do you have a phobia from childhood? Are you a cat person? And why? Do you like allergic allergies? You have other pets yourself that get jealous if they smell another animal on you? There's a reason why you don't want it. Figure it out. And then make that your reason. And so instead of arguing context and trying to convince someone, inspire them to want to. So I may say something, start out with a very specific validation. What a wonderful dog you have. I'm so sorry, though. I have a dog allergy, dog phobia, fear of dogs, jealous dogs, whatever. Would you mind not having them jump on me, please, if it isn't too much of a bother? You're so kind, and I truly appreciate it. Starts out, a validation. Shield's got to be down. I always start a conversation with a very specific validation. I said, when I talked to him on the phone, I said, add something specific about the dog. You like the collar. There's something, in other words, find something that this person thinks is wonderful about their dog and validate that, because their shields have to be down. Because they're expecting adversarial. Shields are down. And now you're owning it. It's completely my fault that I can't have this dog jumping on me. Would you mind helping me? You throw a sympathy theme in there. You get affiliation. We always give sympathy when it's commensurate to the level of relationship we have, because we fear not getting in kind because of that genetic coding for survival. You ask a favor that's reasonable while you start out with a validation. Most of the time, they're going to comply. And if not, you now have a choice. I don't run here anymore. Or I do. But you can't argue context, because I'm telling you, anything else you do, shields are up. Do you see that? See how that thought process is just kind of slightly tweaked in reverse? All right. So in this case, starting with very specific validation, what a vulnerable dog, person chills down, next you take the blame for asking a favor. Lastly, empower them with a choice. Because if you don't mind, that's the empowerment choice. I'm saying, please keep your dog. Look at the difference in this. If you don't mind, here's the reason why. It's all my fault. If you don't mind, could you please keep your dog down or not? Whatever's convenient for you, as opposed to, hey, get your dog off me. I haven't changed the goal. That would be the wishy-washy compromise. No, I'm using language to inspire someone to help me. All right, and so here's the last one, and then I'll take some questions. This is the tale of the teenage Xmas break. So I kind of gave a little precursor to this with my son and this girlfriend. They'd been together about 8 months. Really sweet girl, really nice girl. She wants to be a doctor. Her father's a doctor. She's a hard charger, good-looking, type A girl. And they've been together a while. And ever since like November-ish, she hasn't been wanting to see him as much. There's so much backstory I won't give you. But anyway, so this is like a weekend after he gives me his cell phone. I said, Kevin, what's your goal here? And he goes, I don't want to go out with her anymore. She's driving me up a wall. But I don't want to be the one to break up with her because I want the sympathy of all my friends and I need her network for all the things I'm doing. It's like, all right, so why should she want to break up with you? And want to still be your friend? And so I won't get into it now. I crafted it, and 30 minutes later, all things were calm at night. The next day, he goes in, and what the basic thing was, I said, you're causing, because whatever feeling you're having, he was having a lot of stress from communicating. I said, whatever feeling you're having, it's most likely the other person's having it too. Own it. I just did this with another friend of mine. He's having dating issues too. He said, I'm getting mixed signals. I said, so what are you doing to cause mixed signals, Sean? Own it and apologize for it and say how horrible you are at this. And so what he did, can you imagine a 16-year-old doing this? Instead of arguing the context, he goes in there the next day and says, I completely apologize. I've looked at my text, and I am a horrible communicator. I've created a lot of stress and anxiety in your life, and I want to really apologize for it. I completely understand you don't want to go out anymore. It's my fault. I'll do better next time. Perfect. Who owns that? Instead of arguing, all right? So he bought her like $50, $60 worth of stuff at Books A Million, really specific to her likes, her dreams, the things she likes to do. And this happened last weekend. Bought him before Christmas. He kept trying to give in to her. He should have taken the hint, right? He couldn't get together with to give her Christmas gifts. He didn't get anything from her. Come on. But anyway, he goes up to the counter to return them. We had the receipt still. My son says to the girl at the counter, again, I'm there with my wife, and we're all about to go see. Oh, this is so funny. Horrible. I don't recommend this for young families. What's that movie just came out? There you go. You know what I'm saying. Crazy. Anyway, we're about to go see that. And so we're all in there, all in the Books A Million, and my son goes up the counter and says this to the girl behind the counter. I'd like to return these items for a refund, please. Took out the receipt, shows the receipt. The girl behind the counter looks at the receipt and says, I'm sorry, the expiration date was January 31st. No can do. Son comes to me, sunken face. He goes, they won't take the receipt. Mary Poppins wants to say, where's the manager? This is ridiculous. They can just put this all stuff back on the shelf. I'm going to write a very harshly worded letter. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, guys, what's the goal? They said, well, we got to get this stuff out of his face. It just has bad memories. I said, oh, is the goal to get rid of it? Yes, that's the goal. So it's not to necessarily get a refund. That's nice, but we're kind of forcing it. I said, so the goal is to get rid of it. Why? Because it has bad memories because of the breakup. And what's the alternative? My wife says, burn it. I said, all right. So this is where honesty comes in. I said, Kevin, come with me. Let's have a great conversation with someone. And here's what I can guarantee. We're going to guarantee that the shields are going to be down, and she's going to hear our information, and we're going to empower her with a choice. And we'll see what option she comes up with. If not, we're going to go home and burn it. This is what I said. I'm so sorry to take up your time. I'm so embarrassed. I didn't notice the return date on the receipt. All completely truthful. My son had spent all his money buying these nice gifts for his girlfriend this Christmas, but then she left him. Rather than burn them so it doesn't continue to hurt, is there any chance we might be able to maybe exchange some of them maybe? Do you see the validation? sympathy, empowerment with choice, all completely truthful because it's got to be congruent. And there's my son looking like a bag of rags. She said, well, I can put him on a gift card for you if you want to grab a gift card. I said, oh, that's great. Thank you. Oops, here's your gift card, son. Communication. This is what said I wasn't trying to convince her for a refund. I was trying to inspire her to help me solve a problem. That's it. And that's the way I approach absolutely everything. It's a deep, thoughtful way to how can I accomplish what it is the goal and objectives are, as long as the goals and objectives are in line with them. And let her walk away feeling better for having met me. Brain rewards. To me, it becomes poetic majesty. It really is. I love crafting these challenging situations because I love taking what's seemingly impossible because it's just nothing but a massive divergent of context and having people walk away saying, wow, it was amazing, with a big smile on their face, said, we all win. There's nothing more gratifying. Oh, because someone asked me a lot, so Robin, if you're taking up your 40% of that dopamine hit and giving over to someone else, because that's what leadership is, I'm taking my 40% and consciously making it all about you, when did your dopamine hit? What happens when you accomplish goals and objectives in your brain? Massive dopamine hit. And what if those goals and objectives are to help someone else achieve their priorities and goals? That is the nonstop cyclical. And as long as I keep understanding, whether it's a project manager or father or anything else, that what my initial starting point is, this is what becomes very inspirational leadership. So the last thing I got, we're right on, it's 45 right now. Hour. Oh, last one. Last example for my director. This is a real short one. He makes it all about us. So he got canceled from coming down because of a snow day. We thought he got canceled because of something else. This is last year. And so we're all trying to trudge into the office to meet our director, to him give a speech. By the way, I love this guy. He does all these things you're talking about majestically. He sends out an email to my division, and this is what the email said. After he canceled. Folks, I'm so sorry I didn't get to Richmond today. As you know, I have finished visiting all 56 field offices, starting again with number 1. Hey, validate me. Which is my beloved former home. Although we could have found a way around traffic to get to Richmond, I decided to cancel when I learned schools were closed. I didn't want to miss people, or most importantly, child care responsibilities on a snow day. Who's that all about? Poetic. Really, really good. And now that's it. He said to reschedule quickly, came down 3 weeks later. Bam. You want any more information on me, contact me. peopleformula.com is my website. I will stick around, so if anyone wants to stick around, there you go. Do you want to? All right. Yeah, I'll take questions. I'll take anything.
Any questions right now? Would you like to stay?
Questions, hands?
Thank you. That was really great.
Thanks. Good validation. 30 minutes, clock started.
So, psychopaths.
Right, psychopathy.
4% of the population maybe, but they have an outsized influence on
Yes.
the rest of us.
Yes.
And let's suppose one of them wants your job.
Right.
So there's nothing you can do to validate him.
No.
And you know you can't trust him as soon as you turn away.
Right.
So how do you do it?
Strategizing for a psychopath is probably one of the most challenging things I've done on my team. I've had them, espionage subjects a lot of times are edging up towards psychopathy. And the hardest thing I'm going to tell you the biggest challenges of it, I'm going to tell you the only way to do it. Biggest challenge is the fact you're going to keep wanting to use these things I talked about with a psychopath. Completely ineffective. All they're doing is discovering your weaknesses that they're going to exploit. And they're not doing it consciously. This is just a pure predator because there is no empathy. They are a being without empathy. They're hardwired for it. Again, understanding so there's no animosity. You are just a psychopath. You're biologically made that way. The only thing that psychopaths appeal to is grandiosity and winning and conquering. If you can create a situation where they believe they can have greater grandiosity and conquering in another area through dialogue, then you might get them to go somewhere else. So it really, I mean, we had this one case where the guy, he was bilking people out of millions. The only thing they found in his apartment was a videotape of Catch Me If You Can. So you know what the strategy was? You were not nearly as good or as effective as Frank Abagnale was. He had, because we wanted him to tell us where all his money was. He had millions more than you did. We wanted him to prove he had bigger more than him. So the only way is to appeal to grandiosity. It's rough. Anything else? And I'm not a psychopath expert. I do normal people. If not, I'll be around all week. Try the veal.